The grass brushed her sides as little paws pushed through it. Starlight, a small Eevee with soft brown fur and bright, curious pink eyes, weaved between blooms that stood twice her height. Her ears flicked at the hum of distant cutie flies, and her nose twitched with the sweet scent of pollen and warm petals. She was supposed to stay near the path, but the glitter in the air had been too tempting. A floating cluster of pink gold powder drifted like magic in front of her, and she had followed it into the tall meadow before even thinking twice. Suddenly, the glitter stopped, and a shape appeared in its place. A Rabombi hovered just ahead, wings glinting pale yellow and soft pink in the sun. They were delicate, even for a Rabombi, with a scarf wrapped carefully around their neck and little petal charms tied to the ends. The two Pokemon stared at each other. Then, "Hi," the Rabombi said, voice soft and lilting. "Are you lost?" Starlight blinked up at them, ears slowly lowering, more shy than scared. "No, I was following the floaty stuff," she said, pointing with her nose towards the last of the pollen drifting behind Solus. The Rabombi giggled gently and floated down closer, stopping just above a blossom. "Oh, that was mine," they said. "Sometimes I let it go to see who finds it. I guess today it found you." Starlight tilted her head. "Why?" The Rabombi gave a thoughtful hum, as if pretending to consider, then smiled. "Because I think it was looking for someone who shines in the daylight like stars do in the night." The little Eevee's pink eyes widened. "Stars don't shine in the day." "You do," the Rabombi replied without hesitation. "I'm Solus." "I'm Starlight," she said, ears perking again. "I like stars, and warm places, and finding shiny stuff." Solus's eyes softened. "I like all those things too. Especially shiny things, like new friends." Starlight giggled, hopping in place. "Do you want to play?" Solus didn't answer with words. They just rose into the air, trailing a shimmering swirl of pollen behind them like a ribbon. "Try and catch me," they called with a teasing laugh. And Starlight ran, through the flowers, around tree roots, and under soft beams of sun, chasing sparkles and laughter and the one Pokemon who made her feel like she was something special. For the first time, she didn't feel small. Starlight scrambled after Solus through the tall grasses, laughing so hard she had to stop and catch her breath. Her fur was dusted with golden flecks now, clinging to the soft cream of her chest and paws. She didn't mind. If anything, it made her feel like she sparkled. Solus looped around her in a gentle arc, their wings a blur. "You're fast for someone so small." I'm not small," Starlight huffed between giggles. "I'm growing." "Oh," Solus said, mock serious as they hovered beside her. "Well, I didn't realize I was playing tag with a very grown-up Eevee. I better be careful then." Starlight puffed out her chest in pride, though it lasted only a second before she collapsed into the grass with a happy sigh. "My dad say I'm a whole lot of Starlight in a tiny body." Solus settled beside her, folding their wings. "That sounds just right." They were quiet for a few heartbeats, just listening to the breeze and the soft rustle of wildflowers. Starlight plucked at a long blade of grass and looked sideways at her new friend. "Why are you so nice to me?" Solus blinked. "Why wouldn't I be?" Starlight shrugged, her voice quieter now. "Sometimes other Pokemon say I'm too much. Too giggly, too loud, too full of questions. They don't mean it to be mean, but I feel like I should be less sometimes." Solus's antennae twitched. "No," they said firmly, but gently. "You're not too much. You're just more. They leaned closer, brushing a speck of pollen off her ear. And more is wonderful. Starlight stared, stunned by the simple kindness. Then she smiled, this time slower and softer. You're really sparkly inside, she said. Solus grinned. You're not so bad yourself. They lay in silence a bit longer before Solus nudged her gently. Wanna make a secret? Starlight perked up. What kind of secret? A friendship kind. Just between us. She nodded quickly. Okay. Solus reached down and pulled one of the pink petals from their scarf. Then this is yours now, to keep, so you remember today. The petal was soft, faintly sweet-smelling, and warm from the sun. Starlight took it with both front paws like it was a treasure. Thank you, Solus smiled. It suits you. They didn't know it then, not fully, but in that moment, a bond was formed that would burn bright in Starlight's heart for years to come. And somewhere, deep inside, something began to change. Something small, hopeful, and glowing. The sun had begun its slow drift downwards by the time Starlight padded her way back towards the clearing she called home. The soft petals Solus had given her carefully tucked behind one ear. Her fur was still speckled with gold, her steps light and bouncy from excitement rather than energy. The fairy-light plains shimmered in the low light, pink blossoms glowing like lanterns and long grasses swaying in rhythm with the wind. Her tail flicked behind her as she trotted through the familiar tunnels of curling vines and into the hollow where her home was nestled between flowering stones. Dads! She called, her voice lilting and breathless. From the other side of the clearing, Cross looked up where he was sorting sun-warmed berries into woven leaf bowls. His wide hammer was leaned carefully against the tree behind him. There's our explorer, he said with a soft chuckle. Luciv appeared a second later, ducking beneath a low bough with a strip of fabric in his hands, mid-project. Did you find anything interesting, little Moonbeam? Starlight nearly tripped over herself rushing up to them. I made a friend. A real friend. And they sparkle, and fly, and gave me this. She pointed her paw towards her ear, showing off the tiny pink petal like it was a prize ribbon. Both Tinkaton leaned in to inspect it with great ceremony. Luciv let out a soft whistle, impressed. That's a blossom petal from the high-bloom trees. Fancy. Did this friend give it to you, or did you sneak off with someone's crown? Cross asked teasingly, gently nudging her side. I didn't steal it. She huffed with a giggle. Their name is Solus. They're a Rabombi. They gave it to me 'cause I shine in the daytime like a star. Cross's teasing faded as he and Luciv exchanged a quiet glance. Luciv crouched lower to meet her eyes. That's a really kind thing to say. She meant it, Starlight said, voice softer now. She didn't say I was too much or anything. She just liked me. We played tag, and she let me chase her pollen and everything. Her pink eyes shone. She said I was more. The clearing went still for a moment, only the wind brushing the trees. Then Cross reached out and gently ruffled her fur between her ears. Then I hope you remember that, sweetheart. I will, she said almost fiercely. Luciv wrapped one long arm around her and brought her into his lap with practiced ease. Sounds like you had a big day. Starlight yawned without meaning to. I did. Think Solus will want to play again soon? Cross asked as he handed her a small berry. She nodded sleepily, curling into Luciv's side. She said the pollen might find me again. Luciv smiled and kissed the top of her head. Then we'll be looking out for sparkles in the wind, won't we? Mm-hmm. Her eyes fluttered. She said I was her favorite star. And with those words, warm and mumbled, Starlight drifted off in the glow of the fading afternoon, safe, loved, and for the first time in her young life, seen. Later that evening, in the Fairylight Plains, the wind has stilled. Moonlight softens the edge of the clearing. Starlight is asleep inside the den, curled up with her petal tucked safely beside her. Cross stood at the edge of the clearing, arms crossed, staring at the gently glowing flowers that framed their home. His hammer leaned beside him again, unused, but never far. He didn't look up when Lucive approached, arms empty now, scarf tied back. "She's out like a light," Lucive said softly, still mumbling about sparkles. Cross gave a small grunt in acknowledgement. "You're thinking," Lucive added, after a beat. "Loudly." Cross exhaled through his nose. "I've heard that name before." Lucive's brows lifted slightly. "Solace?" Cross frowned deeper, eyes scanning the swaying boughs. "That little Rabombi, always on their own, showy, charms the petals off everything they talk to. But I remember conversations from the grove's edge, older fairies muttering." Lucive leaned on the tree beside him, thoughtful. "I've heard some of it too, how they drift between groups but never really stay. How everything always feels like a performance." Cross's voice was low. "You ever notice how nobody says they know Solace? Just that they met them?" Lucive was quiet for a moment, then nodded. "That's not nothing." "They gave her a keepsake," Cross added, finally turning to face his husband. "First day meeting her, and already that petal's tucked like a crown in her fur." Lucive smiled faintly, sadly. "She's never had anyone outside of us make her feel that seen before." "That's what worries me." Cross's jaw tensed. "She'll pour all that soft little heart of hers into someone who shines a little brighter and speaks a little sweeter. But what if it's all petals and no roots?" Lucive reached out and gently took Cross's hand. "We can't stop her from opening her heart, and we shouldn't try. But we can be there," Cross said quietly, the edge of his voice softening. "Watch, listen, catch her if something feels off." Lucive squeezed his hand. "Always." Cross exhaled again and glanced towards the den where their daughter slept, chest rising and falling in slow, even rhythms. "If Solace's light is real, I'll be the first to thank them." "And if it's not," Lucive said gently, "then they'll find out what it means to hurt a child of ours." They stood there a while longer, hand in hand beneath the blooming trees, silent sentries watching over their tiny star who had just found her first sparkle in someone else's glow. Mid-afternoon in the Fairylight Plains. The breeze carries pollen across the clearing in slow, golden waves. Cross is organizing gathered wood while Lucive finishes a woven pouch. Starlight's cheerful voice breaks the quiet. "Dads! She came! She came!" Cross glanced up first, setting down a bundle of branches, while Lucive turned from his work, smiling. Starlight bounded into the clearing, fur dusted with clover bits, pink eyes sparkling. Behind her floated a familiar figure, small, graceful, and seemingly glowing in the light. "This is Solace," Starlight announced proudly, nearly tripping as she gestured with her paw. "She's the one I told you about." Solace gave a dainty spin midair, landing lightly on a nearby stone. "It's so lovely to finally meet you both," Starlight said the sweetest things. Luciv stood and offered a polite smile, brushing pollen off his apron. She's had nothing but glowing words for you. She said you sparkle inside. Cross added, folding his arms as he looked Solus up and down. Solus laughed, light and musical. Oh, she's such romantic already. You've raised someone very special. Cross's expression didn't change, but his ear twitched. Starlight bounced in place. Can we play near the pond today? I want to show her the lily path and the flat rocks. Luciv knelt to tie a ribbon more securely around her tail tuft. Of course. Just stay where you can hear the wind chimes. Solus floated closer. Would you like to join us? Or do you need some rest? The offer sounded sweet, but something in the tone felt practiced. No, Luciv said kindly. You two enjoy yourselves. Thank you, Solus said, flashing that warm smile again. But the moment her back turned, her eyes subtly scanning the clearing, not cautious, calculating. As the two vanished between the trees, Cross waited until their voices faded. She didn't ask once how far they could go. He muttered. I noticed. Luciv replied, folding the pouch more tightly than needed. She's charming, Cross said flatly. Too much, Luciv murmured, frowning. Like someone who's learned how to say the right things by watching others, not feeling them. Cross crossed his arms again. Did you catch the pause before she offered to let us come with? Mm-hmm. Like she didn't want us there. They both went silent. Luciv finally sighed, rubbing a hand down his face. But Starlight looked like she was glowing. She's never dragged someone home like that. I know, Cross said. And if we pull too hard, we teach her not to bring anyone home at all. Luciv gave a tired smile. So we watch. And we wait. And we hope. Luciv finished. That Solus is just odd, not unkind. They stood in silence, wind gently stirring the flowers around them. Near the lily pond, hidden just beyond the wildflower grove, the water sparkles under the sunlight. Flat stones stretch like stepping pads across the shallow edges. Starlight leads the way, tail high, eyes gleaming. Look! That's my favorite rock! Starlight bounded ahead and jumped onto a broad, flat stone near the water's edge. It's shaped like a moon! Solus hovered behind her, wings barely stirring the air. Of course it is, they said with a fond smile. You're always finding the beautiful things no one else notices. Starlight beamed. Sometimes I make up stories about the pond, like that it's secretly a sky that fell down to rest. Oh, Solus said dreamily, drifting down to perch beside her. That's so clever. You always think in such special ways. The compliment made her tail swish with pride. Then Solus's voice lowered a little. I bet you don't get to talk much like this at home, huh? Starlight blinked, puzzled. I talk lots. My dad say I have a whole book in my mouth sometimes. Solus giggled softly. I bet they smile. But do they always listen? Starlight hesitated, ears flicking. They try, she said after a moment. Sometimes they're busy. Solus leaned closer, just enough for their scarf to brush Starlight's side. That's the thing, little star. The world doesn't always see how bright you really are. It gets too noisy, too full of other people's shadows. The words stirred something in Starlight's chest, like a feather brushing the wrong way. But I see it, Solus added quickly, catching her look. That's why I found you. That's why my pollen came to you. Starlight's pink eyes softened again. Do you think I'm really different? Solus gave a sweet, airy hum. Yes, but not in the way others might mean it. You're the kind of different people don't understand, so they try to fit you into smaller boxes. Starlight blinked. Like when Cross says I ask too many questions? Exactly, Solus whispered. He doesn't mean to. He's just big, and he's used to making things fit. You're too soft for that. Too delicate. Starlight looked down at her reflection in the pond. The petal Solus gave her still clung behind her ear. But it's okay, Solus added, gently brushing her side with a wing. That's why you have me. I'm the one who sees the real you, the version no one else makes time to see. Starlight's chest swelled, full of something she didn't have a name for. Part pride, part confusion. Thank you, she whispered. Solus smiled again, sweet, innocent, and just a little too knowing. Of course, they said. Just promise me something. Anything. Don't let anyone dull your shine, even if they say they love you. Starlight hesitated. Even my dad's? Solus looked out across the pond, voice distant and light. Even them. Sometimes love isn't enough to see someone like you. The breeze stirred the petals on the water, but the pond had never felt so still. Starlight's gaze lingered on the water, her pink eyes no longer dancing. Her reflection stared back, soft brown fur, big eyes, and that pink petal behind one ear that fluttered with the breeze. Do you really think they don't see me? She asked, quieter now. My dad's? Solus made a soft, thoughtful sound. I think they see what they want to see. They love you. I'm sure they do. But love doesn't always mean understanding. But they tell me I'm special all the time. Solus tilted their head. Do they say that when you're loud? When you ask too many questions? When you take too long to pick flowers or get distracted by stars? Starlight's ears twitched. No, she admitted. They say those are my silly moments. Solus hummed again, wings shifting in slow, graceful beats. That's the thing. Sometimes the parts of you that shine the brightest get called silly or annoying. But those are the real parts, and they're the ones I love most. Starlight's breath caught a little, warm and tight in her chest. The way Solus said it made her feel tall, important, almost like a grown-up, like she was chosen. She nudged closer until her side brushed Solus's. Will you always listen? Even when I'm asking lots of things, or being weird? Solus smiled softly, their expression unreadable for just a second too long. Of course. I don't want you to ever feel like you have to shrink for me. That made Starlight smile again. I don't want you to shrink either. Solus giggled, light and airy. I won't. I'll always stay exactly the size I need to be. Before Starlight could ask what she meant, Solace tapped her nose with one tiny paw. Now, come on. You haven't shown me the lily path yet. Right! The little Evie leapt up, her paws already damp from the pond's edge. She scampered towards the stepping stones, tail wagging once more, though something lingered beneath her joy. A little crease between her brows, a faint, fluttery question she didn't know how to form. Solace drifted after her, smile still sweet, but their gaze briefly shifted, upward, towards the trees in the distance, where a glint of metal flickered between the leaves. A little ways away, hidden behind the flowering thickets, Cross slowly pulled back into the deeper shade. He hadn't heard the words, just a few murmurs, some laughter, but something in the way Starlight's head dipped, the subtle tilt of Solace's wings. It didn't sit right. Not enough to name, not enough to act, but enough to keep him standing there long after they'd moved on, listening to the wind and waiting. Late afternoon. The clearing is quiet. Cross is tending the fire pit while Lucive weaves a sun-dried blossom into one of Starlight's old tail ribbons. "Starlight," Lucive called gently. "Do you want your petal tied in today? I made a new wrap for it." Usually, she'd come bounding over, tail wagging, full of questions about what color he used or how the knots were done. But today, the little Evie sat near the edge of the clearing with her back turned, tracing slow circles in the dirt with one paw. "I don't think I want the ribbon," she said quietly. "It makes me look like I'm trying too hard." Lucive blinked. "Since when is that a bad thing?" Starlight didn't answer. Cross looked over from the fire pit, wiping his paws on the patch of moss. "Everything okay, kiddo?" She shrugged without turning around. "I'm just thinking." Lucive got up and approached her slowly, crouching nearby. "Thinking about what?" Starlight hesitated, paws still moving in slow circles. "Solace says sometimes when you talk too much, people stop hearing you. That it's better to be quiet and only say what matters." Lucive's face softened, but a crease appeared between his brow. "Did you feel like we weren't hearing you?" She finally turned around, ears low, but not angry. "No, just, I talk a lot, and maybe not all of it is good." Cross joined them, crouching beside Lucive, quiet but steady. "Hey, what you say always matters to us, even when it's about bugs or sky stories, or whatever weird dream you had." Starlight looked down. "But that's silly stuff, right? I want to be more real." Cross opened his mouth to answer, then closed it again. Lucive reached out and gently brushed the fur behind Starlight's ear, careful not to disturb the faded pink petal still clinging there. "Sweetheart," he said softly, "being you is the most real thing you can do. Don't let anyone make you think you have to shrink to be worth hearing." Starlight looked at him for a moment, really looked, and Lucive caught the flicker of doubt in her eyes. She nodded slowly. "Okay." But when she turned away and walked towards the far end of the clearing, that petal still bouncing faintly at her ear, neither Cross nor Lucive missed how her tail stayed low, or how quiet the clearing felt without her usual hum of questions and made-up songs. Cross exhaled. "It's starting." Lucive didn't answer. He was still holding the ribbon, flower half woven in.